Welcome into the Full Tilt Devy podcast on the Full Tilt Dynasty Podcast Network. It is another great day with the college football playoff rankings out. Now for your hosts, John Arrington and Andy Starr.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Full Tilt Devy podcast. I'm your host, Dynasty Coach A, joined as always by Andy at AStarFF on Twitter. And we're here to talk to you about some Devy Fantasy Football and also some college football playoff rankings. And also Vols by 50, of course. That's just our jam now. But how are you doing tonight, Andy?
I'm doing good. I think this has to be the game of the year. I know Alabama, Tennessee was great, but man, this is going to be an awesome game just with all the Devy players on the field on Saturday. College game day is going to be there, of course. It's going to be so exciting. Going to be the vibes will be immaculate. I can't wait.
So, it's not really on the show sheet or anything, but, what are you thinking of the game? Because obviously we have the offensive masterpiece that is Tennessee against the, still stout defense of Georgia, but, just about nothing else. So, who wins that game when it's all said and done?
Yeah, we will talk about it later, but I don't really know who wins it. This is one of those games where if you tell me Georgia wins or Tennessee wins, I could be like, yeah, of course, I could totally see that happening. There's just no way that I can make a prediction right now. I could,
actually,
but
I actually do see it's on the show sheet now, and sorry, I've been drinking for a few hours, so it'll be a fun one. We'll get off on some tangents just like that. We'll switch up the show sheet. We'll do whatever the hell we feel like.
Yep, he famously reads the show sheet 10 minutes before we get here, so
it's very true.
So far, it's worked great. So
yeah, exactly, but. We're here to talk about some other stuff besides Tennessee and Georgia until we get to that point of the show sheet, of course, because I'm a professional and I like to follow the show sheet and do my job. But first of all, speaking of doing your job, Brian Harsin was not doing his, and he ended up getting fired with a 9-12 record at Auburn in his 2 years at Auburn. What do you think of the firing? And I can't imagine that you're going to say it wasn't warranted. So at this point, we just have to do you think it was too early, too late, or how do you feel about it?
No, I think it was definitely warranted. If anything, it might have been a little too late. The wheels came off that program after last season. But like you said, 9-12. I'm not going to say anything about Harsin as a coach because obviously I think he's a decent coach. He did well at Boise State. I'm just going to look at this purely from a Devy point of view, since that's what we talk about on this Devy show. But the offense at Auburn really struggled to get anything going under Harsin. His neutral game pass rate was below the average at 44%, which does not lend to a lot of scoring, as we saw. Bo Nix obviously transferred out. Now he's having a lot more statistical success at Oregon. Our thoughts on Tank Bigsby are no secret. And they really have never had a wide receiver do anything since he's gotten there. Robbie Ashford, the quarterback this year, has been awful. So I think it's great news for us Devy guys because Auburn is flush with NIL cash. And if they can make a solid hire, we could see some more potential NFL players coming out of that offense.
Can't get worse, right?
It cannot get worse. So
I just wonder... I wonder your opinion. Obviously, we both are not Tank Bigsby fans,
yes.
As your cat is doing yoga in the background or something to that effect. But there's a lot of defenders, and obviously we've known for a long time now that Tank Bigsby has a lot of defenders, and people still putting him in the top 5 of their rankings, and just seems like their ranks haven't changed since late 2020. But what do you think about people saying, "Oh, well, just Auburn's just that terrible. That's why Tank is so bad"?
I guess I don't really have a defense for it because Auburn is terrible. But we've seen good running backs come out of bad programs before. And Tank Bigsby, he just doesn't seem to have it this year or last year. The freshman year was promising, but there's too many questions to his game. He's just really doesn't have that second burst to really create those big plays that we want to see, if you're going to be a future NFL star. And, I talked about it when we did the Players We Hate podcast, I think last week, that even though his reception market share has been up this year, he really just hasn't improved any in the pass game. He's just sort of catching more of these screen passes and the dink and dunks from Robbie Ashford, who's just really a horrible, horrible quarterback. They need to figure something else out there because he hasn't done anything all year. And I feel bad because there's guys that, as like a C2C player, you think, okay, Auburn wide receivers, they've been decent in the past. You want to have like a guy you think that can at least be the best in the room, but they've all just not been anything. So it's frustrating.
Yeah, but it makes me think of a guy like Sean Tucker, that people were giving me crap about with how's a player from Syracuse going to get drafted? Well, now like they're doing pretty damn well and ranked and all that kind of good stuff, but like last year they weren't, and he was still a stud. Like he was a stud last year when they weren't doing all that well, and Tank's not. So I guess I get what you're saying. Like it's hard to argue because they're a bad team, but at the same time, like bad teams still produce good players. It still happens, and he has not done much.
Exactly.
So Auburn is going to be paying out $56,000 a day after this initial buyout to coaches that they have bought out, aka Gus Malzahn and now Brian Harsin.
Oh, that's rough. Although I am pretty excited about Cadillac Williams being the interim head coach because I used to deliver pizzas to him, and he's actually a pretty sweet guy. Like,
no way.
Yeah. He was pretty cool, and he always tipped very well. So I'm from the Tampa area. He was part of the Bucks, and I delivered pizzas a long time ago. That was a long time ago. Like when I started thinking about them, like he's the head coach now. That was like 20 years ago.
Yeah, about. I mean, what he came in the league in 2003, I want to say.
Yeah.
But as far as like Auburn's concerned, that now they have the coaching opening. Maybe it will be Cadillac Williams. I don't think it will be, but I've heard Lane Kiffin's name tossed around. I think that's kind of interesting. People are probably think he's got the whole Ole Miss thing on lockdown right now, but he left Tennessee high and dry to go to USC. Sorry, Lucas, to bring that back up. But I would not put it past him to leave for a powerhouse with more cash like Auburn.
You know what? It's water under the bridge at this point, especially if this week goes well for my Vols.
Exactly. He's not going to care about that shit anymore.
No.
All right, enough about crap teams. Let's talk about some good teams. The college football playoff rankings came out, and there's some people that are already very upset, and it's pretty hilarious because every year this happens. I'm sure that you have some very hard-hitting analysis, and I'm not saying that like jokingly or anything like that. I do believe in your analysis, but I want to get my spiel out of the way first, and then you can go ahead and talk about some like actual college football and stuff. I don't think it matters. I really don't think it's going to truly matter until we get to the college football playoffs, the expanded college football playoffs. Like that's when it's going to be like a real playoff. Right now, it's kind of like a homecoming at high school or something like that, where it's just a popularity contest more than anything else. Like last year, people were like, oh, Cincinnati has to be in it. And then they just get absolutely destroyed. Like they should have never been in that. I get that they were undefeated and all that kind of stuff. But like you can look at teams like Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia and just be like, okay, Cincinnati's not that. So it kind of becomes like a popularity contest. People like bitching about like who should be, who shouldn't be, like that kind of thing, and we get away from like the best teams, like who are just the best teams. Like you can tell, like oh no, they lost a game because they had an injury here or whatever. Like that kind of stuff like should be talked about or should be included in the analysis, not just like oh well they lost 2 games so they can't possibly be in the college football playoffs. Like even in like a Texas, I'm not even saying that Texas should be in it, but it's like, oh, well, they lost multiple games, so they can't possibly be in the playoffs. It's like, well, I mean, if they're that good, which, once again, not saying that they are, but if they were, just because Quinn Ewers was out, doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't be in the playoffs, that kind of thing. So I I don't know. I don't think that the best teams always end up in it. And so when it's all said and done, I think it's really dumb. I think that I'll be happy when we actually get to the expanded college football playoffs. But that's my spiel. That was my rant. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I'm on board with a lot of what you said, but I'll give you my initial reactions, and a lot of it is going to relate to what you just said. First of all, I just want to say good for Tennessee for getting number one. I think they deserve it if you look at what they've done and accomplished this season up to this point. But man, it does put some serious bulletin board material for the Georgia Bulldogs ahead of their matchup on Saturday in Athens. Definitely going to put them to the test, and we'll see how it shakes out. Ari Wasserman on Twitter brought up a good point to one of the committee chairs and asked him if like Vegas betting lines were taken into account when they were doing the rankings consideration. Apparently they are not, but it is curious because Georgia is obviously an 8-point favorite on Saturday. So obviously Vegas and bettors believe that Georgia is the better team. But that's all I have to say about that. As for the Big Ten teams, I think Michigan kind of got the snub here. If you're going to give Tennessee the number one based on the season so far, I think you have to give Michigan the edge over Ohio State. Michigan has beat teams soundly with the exception of Maryland, who they struggled with against, but their defense has been much better than Ohio State. And I think Michigan played better against Penn State, albeit they were at home and the Buckeyes were on the road, but that's really their best shared opponent so far. At the end of the day, like you said, John, it doesn't matter right now. They're going to get to settle that at their annual rivalry game anyhow. So it doesn't matter if Michigan was 6 and Ohio State was 1. That game at the end of the year is what's going to be the ultimate determinator.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And that's why, like, I don't even know, even if you don't care about what I said earlier, like, it doesn't even necessarily matter because, Tennessee and Georgia, somebody has to lose. Then, like, obviously Alabama and Georgia have to play and, like, all that kind of stuff has to happen. Michigan and Ohio State or whoever, I'm assuming that it's going to be those two teams. Like, they're going to play. Like, so why are we sitting here freaking out about what's happening in week 10? What are we in, week 10? Like, it just doesn't seem it doesn't even seem to, like, truly matter at this point.
And it doesn't. Just a few other thoughts. So outside of the top 5, I had an issue with LSU being a top 10 team. They lost to FSU, almost lost to Auburn. Bama's going to embarrass them this weekend. And like you said, this comes down to a popularity contest. I think this just, they wanted to build this as a top 10 matchup with Alabama this weekend when it clearly is not. LSU is not a top 10 team.
I mean, I will give them a little bit of credit because they've been doing pretty well lately. Like you said, they started off rough. I mean, you could tell like things just were not clicking. Whether it was still learning the offense, and we talked about it before. How like this is what happens when you have 3 different QBs in the offseason. Like just choose a freaking QB and run with it so your offense can start off hot. And then, Jaden Daniels is actually looking pretty damn good lately. So, maybe they should have actually just started him off, from the beginning, from, early in the off season or in the, in spring camp or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, obviously I would expect them to lose to Alabama. I don't expect them to, even though they have been playing a lot better, to keep up, but we also didn't necessarily expect Tennessee to win, although Tennessee by 50, or Vols by 50. But I just think, I get it though. Like I don't expect LSU to finish at top 10, but that's also probably like the SEC bump and all that, which is deserved. Exactly. But like it's just it doesn't matter. These ranks don't matter. That's basically what it boils down to.
I think what the committee showed so far is that what they're valuing the most right now is your overall schedule in terms of what ESPN has their SOR, which it's not a great stat, but it's something to go off of in terms of how difficult your schedule is compared to your record. So they were valuing that, and then they were also valuing style points, which is why I think that Clemson snuck into the top 4. I know that's really tough, and I think if they win out, they will obviously get into the playoff no matter what. But TCU got hurt really bad. Even though they have a good record, they just they have not looked great at times throughout that run in getting there. They've had to come from behind a lot so far. And while we love Quentin Johnston and what he's doing, just going to take another victory lap there.
All right, so he is actually playing very well, and I want to say that. Like, when we did our draft, he was not. And so, like, it's a very clear and obvious turn from what he was doing, like 180-degree turn. He was listening. He took it personally, and I'm fine with it. Like, I want more good players in the draft, and I'm perfectly fine saying I was wrong at that point because, like, he just wasn't playing well. So, I mean, like, you can call me wrong all you want, but, like...
We weren't wrong at that point.
We were not wrong at that point.
We were wrong now.
We're wrong now, but I'm actually happy about it. Like, it's just another good player in the draft that we can... But... I also still think he's still like I just saw something from PFF talking about him, the 9th overall player on their big board for 2023.
Bleacher Report just had him go 5th overall in their updated mock draft.
Like that's just
I'm not ready for that, but
yeah, that's wild. That's what I'm saying. Like so, like I'm excited about it because it's going to push some of these other good players down.
And before we move on, outside of quarterbacks and Blake Corum, who do you have influencing the college football playoff the most from a Devy perspective?
Might be Jalin Hyatt right now, like the way he's playing, but I don't know. Like besides quarterbacks and Blake Corum,
because Blake Corum's the obvious answer. I feel like,
yeah, that is true.
Brock Bowers maybe from Georgia. He's kind of like the playmaker on offense there.
Yeah, man, he not to say that he was ever like low, but man, he just keeps creeping up the wide receiver model. I don't even have a tight end model. Like he just keeps creeping up the wide receiver model, and I'm like, dude's like one of the best wide receivers in the draft, much less a tight end.
Real quick before we move on, and we can skip the Seven McGee stuff, but I just want to talk about TCU, like what Lucas just brought up, and you know. This is kind of an argument for an expanded playoff because there is a scenario where they go undefeated and they don't get in the playoff as a Big 12 Power 5 champion. Because let's say Tennessee loses to Georgia this weekend, and then Georgia plays Bama in the SEC championship, and then Bama beats them. Now they've all got one loss. You got to assume at least 2 of those teams are getting into the playoff. And then the last 2 spots would obviously go to the Big 10 champion and Clemson, assuming they stay undefeated. So if that happens, TCU fans will have my sympathy for one, and also every right to feel angry because they don't have, they're undefeated. They didn't lose and they're not going to be in the playoff. So like what John was saying, we need the bigger playoff, and it's happening, thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's a few years from now, so like it's not happened just yet. Like, but we know that it's coming, and I guess that's all that really matters. But I mean, that is a good point, and like I said, it brings me back to the Cincinnati of last year where like people are like, oh, they're undefeated, you have to put them in. And it's like, well, if you did it with Cincinnati, then you kind of have to do it with TCU, but it's all going to depend on what happens with all the, the rest of these games and these important games. Right. And then, like you said, we have Seven McGee on the show sheet here, but he sucks. We don't need to talk about him. So that's not important.
I thought he might be good at one point. So good luck to him.
I actually, you know what? I was gonna talk about. I think you're the only one that ever thought he was gonna be good but then like I looked at it and I thought I had it here, but C2C had him as the RB 71 in May or something like that. So I don't know, if that's what you were hoping for or whatever. So, but that's where he was. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck to him. Hopefully
it didn't work out. Hey, at least you got a Bonaconda, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, why don't we take a little break here, and then when we come back, we're actually going to talk about some actual Devy and C2C trades that we've done, and give a little bit of analysis there. So we're not just going to talk about I would do this or I would do this. Is what we've actually done. But let's take a little break.
I think Greg Dulcich is like a top 6 dynasty tight end. Because tight end sucks. We know that tight end sucks. So to me, it's like who is the better bet to become that elite guy? Who's the best bet to hold all that value? And I think you can make an argument a number of different ways. But similar to a guy like Mark Andrews, really similar to a guy like Mark Andrews, Dulcich was a guy who had sufficient but not elite athleticism, but yet he was able to win in a downfield role playing off the line of scrimmage in college. He comes in as a 3rd-round pick. He comes in as a rookie. He's immediately efficient. He's immediately earning volume. Like, I don't know. I'd rather just take a shot on that than like go for these like mid options that I can get the same production out of Tyler Higbee. So,
and I know that you don't have to do that. You can always get the plus on top. So I think that's you're gonna for sure be able to get a plus on top on name value for Dulcich. I really believe in most leagues.
The Dulcich hype is getting wild, and I mean, I'm not even saying it's like that. I don't like the player. I'm just saying that it's getting pretty wild. I mean, people are talking about like top 6 tight end and like in Dynasty and stuff like that, and that's where you start losing me.
Yeah, well, us Campus to Canton guys were on Dulcich since last year because he was obviously a great CFF producer. So that's a nice win for Campus to Canton right there.
Yeah,
but did you see those mustaches?
I was gonna say if you notice those mustaches, or at least the mustache that Tommy T had, and then whatever was on Lucas's face, but or not Lucas's face. I'm sorry. Oh man, I messed it up. But Jacob's face. Thank you. We're actually promoting Men's Health for Movember, and so we're hoping that you guys will possibly donate some money. I believe there's going to be a link somewhere. Lucas, do you have any more information on that?
Should be on our Twitter page.
Okay, well, it'll be on the Twitter page. Lucas probably stepped away. I cannot see him, but yeah, promote Men's Health. Check, get yourself checked, do all that kind of stuff, and grow a mustache if you can, I guess. But let's go ahead and dive into some actual Devy and C2C trades that we've done. And I have not looked at any of these, and I can tell you, Andy does not know the one that I'm bringing up. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a shocker, but we'll probably do that one last because it's pretty sexy. What do you got for me?
All right, I'll start with a kind of a simple one here. This was in a Campus to Canton league, but it's kind of a Devy trade. Player 1 received Gerald Everett, and in return they sent Alabama quarterback freshman Ty Simpson.
Give me Ty Simpson all day long. I mean, obviously Everett's had some great weeks and everything, but I don't think he's ever proven to be anything besides, like a viable dynasty tight end, which is all you can ask for from a dynasty tight end, but like he's not going to be like a game winner or anything like that. I know he had a couple weeks in the beginning of the season. We've seen Jalen Monroe here in this season, and he has not looked like, I mean, if anything, he's looked like a smaller version of Anthony Richardson, and like that's not a good thing. So obviously we know that players can grow, players can get better. I'm not trying to hate on Monroe here, but I do think that Ty Simpson has a leg up on that job. And look at these jamokes. I love it. But I just think it to me, it seems pretty simple. Now, that does not mean that the coaches agree or anything like that. But yeah, give me Ty Simpson all day long on this one.
So I will just tell you that I agree with this take that you just gave in a vacuum. I will also tell you that I received Gerald Everett in this instance. And I'll tell you why I did it. I knew it was an overpay, but I am competing on the NFL side, and I had Darren Waller, who was obviously been hurt, and I needed a tight end, and Gerald Everett's been consistently getting around the 12-point range. This is a tight end premium league. So that's why I did it. And I am on record as hating quarterback value in Devy because it is so volatile. You can go from 100 to 0 in a day. It just takes like literally one bad performance. And Alabama, if Simpson is the Alabama quarterback, then I will have lost this trade tremendously. And I understand that. But they're also bringing in Eli Holstein and Dylan Lonergan, 2 more 4- and 5-star freshman quarterbacks. Like you said, they have Jalen Monroe. I don't know. It does, like you said, smaller Anthony Richardson is like a spot on analysis of what we've seen so far. So it's one of those trades where, yeah, I felt like I was probably losing it in the long term, but I wanted to go ahead and try and win that this NFL side there, so I went ahead and took a losing trade.
And just to give you a little bit of credit, and I'm not trying to take your side just because you're the co-host or anything like that, but just to give you a little bit of credit, like you said, Ty Simpson's not guaranteed a damn thing. So I do like him better than Milroe, but that doesn't mean that another QB won't swoop in and take over. I don't love the trade, but I get it. Like if you're competing and you have to have a tight end or whatever, then sometimes you just got to make this stuff happen. And if it's truly a Devy league, you're also talking about waiting 2 years and like all that kind of, or possibly more even. So it's like it's basically giving up a 24 pick, for Gerald Everett. But you're just hoping it's not a 24 first. That's when it would suck.
You're absolutely right.
All right, let's get into the second one here.
All right, this one is a little bit more of a big hitter. So it was Mike Williams, wide receiver for the Chargers, for Rocket Sanders and Drake May.
All right, well, if you know me, you know I love Drake May. I actually a week ago, I moved Drake May up to my Devy QB1 overall. Yes, that's probably a spicy meatball, but that's where he is. Dude's just balling out as a newcomer, as a first-year starter, and I love everything I've seen from him. Everything looks great, and the whole argument I ever heard about him, same kind of thing I was hearing about Sean Tucker, can he get drafted from North Carolina, like that kind of thing. If he keeps playing like this, we're not going to ever worry about that ever again. So I just moved him up, and as we're getting closer to CJ Stroud and Bryce Young getting drafted, we're starting to hear the nitpicking, and that always happens, but right now, there's nothing you can nitpick about Drake May. Dude's just a stud. So, he's not he's still in the same. That is a hot take, absolutely. But he's still in the same tier as those two guys, and very close. But he did move ahead. And then we've talked about Raheem Sanders. I was wrong. Dude's a stud. It just. All that for Mike Williams, and dude's not even playing right now? Come on. This is easy. And I'm sure at the time of the trade, it was probably a little different, where Mike Williams was doing something or expected to do something. But right now, it just seems like, why did this trade even happen?
So, yes, this is another one that I took a big fat L on. It did happen a couple weeks ago before Mike Williams got hurt. But Drake May, for me, I was thinking, okay, he's been playing really well. I know that the NFL has said no thank you to the UNC system previously with Sam Howell. And Rocket Sanders is good. I can't deny that anymore. Dominique Johnson's even back now, who was that was my last thing to fall back on. Is Dominique Johnson will be back and he's going to take that backfield over.
It doesn't
again.
matter.
It hasn't happened. It's Rocket Sanders. He's a beast. But it's another league where I was competing, and I wanted to see if maybe I could go out and get another big time wide receiver, guy who's connected to Justin Herbert for at least this season and I believe next season for sure. But obviously that offense hasn't been doing what it did in years past. Which isn't to say, Mike Williams wasn't playing well prior to getting hurt, because he was. He was still I think he was averaging 15 or 16 PPR points at that time.
He was doing Mike Williams things where he has 2 points one week, 23 points the next week, and that's just how he rolls.
Which is fine, because it was a league where I had a lot of really good guys. So if he was going to win me weeks, that'd be great. But he was never going to lose me weeks because I had a lot of depth anyhow. But man, now looking back at it, Drake May's not my QB1. That's very spicy.
I love me some May, man.
Yeah, but obviously we're talking guys like Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams, man, who's just Caleb Williams is looking great.
But are you okay with having him in that top tier at least?
No, I think I still have Caleb Williams in the top tier. I'm okay with putting him in a 1B tier with Quinn Ewers at this point. Okay. But I think I have Caleb Williams ahead of them both. And and the margin's not big, but it's like I said, it's like a 1A,
No,
1B.
it's I honestly like I don't have Caleb Williams in my tier 1, but he's not that far behind the tier 2. But the only 3 QBs that are in tier 1 you can obviously figure out at this point. So it's just Williams hasn't shown to be like quite the passer that maybe I would like to see. So that's the only reason why he's down there. But he's still very, very good.
I mean, he played great last weekend, and they didn't have Jordan Addison. They didn't have Mario Williams. He just had like Taj Washington and Jerry Rice's kid. And
yeah, but unlike Twitter, I actually look at more than 1 week. So we have to.
Hey, so do I. I look at it.
I said Twitter. I didn't say you. I didn't say you. But I mean, when was this trade?
It was like literally the week before Mike Williams got injured.
Oh no, man. I mean, I don't even say. I don't think I can even say that I understand this one. You gave up so much.
It's a Devy. It's a Devy league. So if it was C2C, I would never do that because Drake may
of
be
course
winning the college side. But this is just straight Devy. And typically in Devy leagues, what you try to do is like, okay, what's Rocket Sanders and Drake May? You think, okay, they're probably going to be early to mid first round picks in 2024. So is Mike Williams worth 2 first round picks in 2024? No.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm trying to figure this one out. Like, even if you don't have him in that tier 1 or anything, like you still have to have May at least a second or something like that in 24. Early second, that kind of thing. And then if you're assuming that Rocket Sanders is going to be an early first, then I don't get this one.
See, that's the thing. Like, I'm still not like 100% sold on Rocket Sanders, to be honest.
Really?
I think he's good. I think he's up there. He's definitely a top 5 running back in the class. I don't really have anything to back that statement up. Maybe it's just like me being very frustrated that what I thought was going to happen didn't happen. But this is another league where I'm competing. I actually won it last year, so I'm just trying to go ahead and win some more money because there's no money on the college side here. So,
well, here's the thing: if you win this league, then this trade does not matter. You won the trade. That's all that matters. So I hope that Mike Williams can get healthy, and obviously he was healthy at the time. So like that's a very big difference. That just sucks. That's just bad luck. But I mean, I get it. I appreciate you wanting to win. I don't love the trade.
No, I know. It's Devy, everything's so volatile too. Like right now it seems like they're 2024 first. A lot can change in a year.
All right. Well, I mean, this is what happens when you go in blind because I was kind of expecting you to get some of these some W's here. I'm hoping you're going to get a dub here. So please. Zach Charbonnet for Trevante Citizen and C2C supplemental second. So I was kind of always out on Citizen, like not out, but just like out compared to other people. Like people were talking about him being a top 5 back, and I didn't see it. Like he seems to not have like a lot great athleticism or anything like that, and not that the Cats. Not that they're like the Miami's like a great team. Obviously, we know that. So like they're not all that great. So if that's the case, then like what are we gonna get? Like we have a guy that's not all that athletic, that's on a not that great team. So I just was never all that into him. And I mean, obviously, a supplemental second is nice, but it's definitely not like a guarantee of anything. I mean, if anything, I'm newer to C2C, so I definitely don't have any kind of like 100% guaranteed this is what it is, but I feel like you have like a 10, maybe 20% hit rate, like something like that, or like, shot at that. That's probably pretty good, honestly. So you're kind of just hoping, and I honestly think that Zach Charbonnet has increased his draft stock in the NFL draft, and I mean, he's looking better this year. We've been talking about like we didn't know why he came back, and I still don't understand it per se, but he looks better. So maybe he actually increased his draft stock, and maybe that's why he came back. He's like, I can do better. And so I love the Charbonnet pick here, and I was not always on board with them, but man, he's just standing out this year.
Yes, and I did get Charbonnet, so I won one. And I'm fully on board the Charbonnet train too. I actually talked about him in the Devy recap this week. Check that out Tuesdays. It's only like 4 minutes long, easy to consume. But yeah, and I compared him to like a better version of Najee Harris, which if you look at his numbers, he comps very similarly in size. And
That's not someone you want to compare to right now.
No, it's not. But what
I get what you're saying.
What Najee Harris lacks is that ability to create yards in the second level, and Zach Charbonnet can do that. So he's a good running back. He's Najee Harris without the flaws. Unfortunately, he doesn't have that Alabama, name next to him, the red crimson helmet, but so he's not going to be drafted in the first round. But that's fine. I think he's still probably a late, maybe he's an early day 2 pick because he's been playing great. He had an awesome game last week. So that's why I did it. And this is in a league where I'm going to be entering the playoffs on the college side, and I think Charbonnet is like either second or third in PPR points for running backs in the college side right now. So I was psyched for that trade. That was huge.
Yeah, I love everything about that trade, especially in a C2C. Like you're getting the points right now, and then I'm expecting like day 2 draft capital, like you said. So like I've never like actually like gone in and like focused on draft capital, but it just everything kind of shows or says right now that he's going to be drafted earlier than expected last year, and a lot of people liked him last year. Like thought he was going to be coming out early and all that. So I think that I absolutely love that one. As much as I hated the last one, I love this one.
And I will just say I'm with you on Trevante Citizen. This was just sort of a guy I picked up because of all the noise. Like, I like to think some people know better than me a lot of the times with the incoming freshman for sure. And
he's
Trevante
5 stars,
Citizen,
right?
Yeah, 5 or high 4. Highly touted either way. But the other thing too, like when I look at freshman running back, if there's a guy who's like 220 pounds, I'm like, okay, this dude, he's big, and he's highly rated. So that's what Trevante Citizen was. So I thought, all right, well, these guys say that he runs good on film, so I'm just going to take their word for it. And unfortunately, he's been hurt all year, so I don't know. We don't really know what's going to happen.
Right.
Henry Parrish, for what it's worth, has looked really good for Miami this year. So I don't know. He'll probably be back next year. I don't see him going pro. So it could be. The guy who got Trevante Citizen could end up doing great, but I like where I stand right now with it.
I think that's going to be a good one for the campus and the Canton side. I'm going to go ahead and put mine into the chat here real quick, and then we can talk about it because it's a pretty big trade as far as like the amount of pieces and everything. But it involves, there is for sure. But it involves Josh Allen and CJ Stroud. So there's some big pieces here.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we're hold on. I'm trying to remember who all's in it. Actually, I just brought up the trade, so I don't have to remember. So we have. I'm not going to tell you which side. We have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and Zach Ertz on one side for Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, CJ Stroud, a 2023 first, Devy depleted, and a 2023 Devy first. So I'm adding that to the chat because I know that's a lot to take in.
Yeah, I tried writing it down, but okay. So Josh Allen, Diggs, and Ertz for Jerry Jeudy, CeeDee Lamb, CJ Stroud, a 2023 rookie Devy depleted first, and a 2023 Devy first.
You got it.
All right. I'm assuming, okay. It's got to be Josh Allen. And
It's got to be
Diggs.
Josh Allen. Yeah,
Like,
it has to be.
Yeah, there's not even that's not even. Josh Allen he's going to be the MVP again this year. He's going to lead the QBs in scoring. He's going to lead all of fantasy in scoring. Yeah, and then Diggs is what? He's probably like wide receiver 1 or 2 right now too. So
he has to be up there.
Just making that trade right now. I mean, Ertz is kind of a throwaway now that DeAndre Hopkins is back, but
It's a start 12 league, so I mean depth helps, and
Yeah.
especially like tight end and flex
Right,
help.
with
So
bye weeks
like
and whatnot.
Ertz is definitely not like a throwaway in that type of league.
No, that's not what I meant. But
No, I mean compared to the other two, of course. But I just
Yeah.
like in that type of league, like I've definitely started Ertz.
so here's the thing: like if I have Josh Allen, who's like one of these generational fantasy football pieces, he's probably going to be a QB1 for the next 10 years, let's say, conservatively, maybe 8 years. I'd want to see you get Stroud back. Okay, that's good, but he's a rookie. But I feel like you still want to get like some more like secured value. Maybe, at this point, I think even Jalen Hurts is kind of like way up there to where it's almost you're not going to get much more on top of that with him. But the picks are like the Devy depleted rookie first is going to be, a typical rookie second. So that's not much to really.
And I mean, as of right now, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn, but as of right now, it is 112. So
So basically, it's going to be like the 212 in your standard dynasty league.
right.
So that's not, that's nothing really. That's basically a third. Judy and Lamb are just like Lamb is all right. Judy's okay, but none of them are like, these super electric wide receivers. And then the Devy first is really just I don't want to say it's a dart throw, but it's kind of hard to hit depending on what year of the league it is. If it's like in the third or fourth year of the league, those are really hard to hit on.
No, it's a brand new league this year, so I mean it's newer, and I mean I'm sure there's probably going to be some pretty good players available via the first. So like honestly, I think it's a pretty good trade for them because of that reason. But I mean, obviously, it's probably them taking on more risk than I am, when it's all said and done. But a little context on this one, we have a rule in my happy hour crew where if we ever meet up in person, because we're all from all over the country and even the world, we have people from Lithuania and Canada and obviously all over America. If we ever meet up in person, we have to make a trade. It's just like, it's kind of an unwritten rule, but like you kind of have to make it work. And so I went up to Massachusetts and I met my friend Duchesne's, and we had to get a trade done. And so we went back and forth quite a bit live. Like this was all live. There was no sending offers and all that. We're just literally talking and drinking beers and stuff. And he sent me, or he told me about a couple offers, and I was just like, man, I really don't like it. And then he went to the bathroom, and I'm looking at some stuff, and he came back, and I was like, all right, this is what I got for you. And I think I offered him the 23 depleted first, and he threw in the Devy first, and I was like, here we go, and we shook hands, and we're done. So but it was a live trade from Florida to Massachusetts, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a big win for you, and like you said, now I feel like you're saying it's going to be the 112. I think definitely you got Allen and Diggs. Like that stack is so deadly. So I think you might have won the league.
That team is stacked, and obviously adding Allen and Diggs, that was really my only my weakness, because I had crazy wide receivers. Judy and Lamb were my wide I really like Lamb. I'm pretty high on Lamb, but Judy was my wide receiver 6, so it wasn't really the end of the world to get rid of him. But I needed a QB, and so obviously adding Josh Allen is pretty nice.
I love it.
Absolutely. The only other trade that I have, and it wasn't anything special, but I just want to kind of talk about it because it might be good for people to hear jumping into the first C2C league or whatever. I had somebody offer me a trade, and it was a late C2C startup pick, campus startup pick. And they offered me a trade, and it was round 36, and they offered me the round 36 pick and 2 round 40 something picks. And I was just like, I don't want those picks. Those aren't going to do anything for me. And so I ended up getting, instead of those later, in the 40s picks, I got a future supplemental draft 9th thrown in. And I'm just like, you know, it's probably not going to end up being like anything amazing, but I feel better about that than like who I'm going to take in the 40th round of or like 45th round of a campus draft, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. They're about the same to me, I feel like, because they both could be valuable. At that point in the draft of a campus Canton, and at that point, for one, you're absolutely right about the supplemental. Like in the 9th round of the supplemental draft, you're gonna get guys that score points on the college side, like CFF. They might not be NFL talents, but they're gonna be valuable to your college team.
Right.
In the 40th round, it might be a little bit harder to hit on those guys. So, yeah, I see what you're saying, but for me, it's just like potato almost.
Yeah, and I felt the same way, but I also felt pretty good about my team at that time, and I didn't really want. Like, I was fine with trading away the I think it was like round 36 or whatever it was. I was fine trading away that pick. I just didn't really want 2 more picks in the 40s. Like, it's just not what. So I was just like, yeah, like, you know, give me a round 41 pick and your round 9 pick next year, and we're, you know, we'll call it even. And I mean, to be fair, I got Audric Estime in like round 47 or something like that. So I mean, you can still get some good players in the 40s. It's not like you can't, but I also took some bad players in the 40s. So like it just, I mean, I get, you know, it's just like anything else. It's all about hit rate and all that kind of stuff. But I was happy to get, you know, some extra ammo for next year's supplemental, because especially being my first supplemental draft, I really wanted to go all in and be able to move around and do all that kind of fun stuff.
Nice. I like Estime too, by the way. I think he's really climbing up my boards.
He is. And I mean, I was given, that was another player I was given a lot of crap about, you know, like, oh, you know, Tyree and Diggs are going to be above him and all this. I was like, really?
Diggs has been good too, but Estime seems to be stepping up more than anybody.
I mean, all I ever say is, have you ever actually looked at Audric Estime? Because if you look at him, you won't ever question him again.
He's a big dude.
Dude's a stud. But enough about our trades. That was a lot of fun, and obviously that something I would love to do again once we get some more trades going in those leagues, because I think, you know, people love to hear actual trades that have happened and not just, oh, this is what I would do, like that kind of thing. But why don't we take a quick little break, and then we'll talk about this game that we've never talked about before, Tennessee and Georgia, and you know, what we think about it.
So Edmonds is going to play the Boone role, which is not enough to start, but it's enough to make the others not very startable.
Yes, it's going to be annoying and gross.
Like, right. So like basically once they got down to a 2-man the last couple of weeks, it's been kind of nice because like Latavius has been mainly the guy getting the carries, but Melvin still gets enough carries, and then he gets all of the passing down work. And it's kind of like the saddest, like dustiest Chubb Hunt-esque split imaginable.
Yeah.
But now it's just like it's you can't. I don't think you can play any Denver back, like, because at this point,
no, it's
Evans is going to have like 2 or 3 targets a game. He's useless, and then you're just saying, okay, which of Melvin or Latavius falls in the end zone this week? Because otherwise, they're going to have 10 carries for 40 yards.
Yeah, I think it's disgusting gross. I just wanted to take this moment to shine this giant W on my Chase Edmonds take.
You get the W
from the
there.
offseason. I'm going to do that.
That's not really fair, because Tommy T hates every running back, so like obviously he's going to hate Chase Edmonds as well.
Yeah, I can't blame him, but I hear what you're saying. They're absolutely right. Like, Denver is just a wasteland at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to get excited about Edmonds at this point. Like, if you couldn't beat out Raheem Mostert, you know, 32-year-old Raheem Mostert, like, how are you going to beat out Melvin Gordon and Latavius Murray and whoever the hell else? But actually, I said we were done with our trades, but I literally just got a C2C trade offer. So why don't we go ahead and figure out if I'm going to accept this live on air?
All right.
So I'm not going to tell you which side.
All right.
So Jordan Mims, Isaiah Bowser, and Sam Pinckney for Malik Neighbors, round 6 supplemental and round 13 supplemental.
Are you competing?
I am in first, yes.
If you're in first, I think I would probably go with the CFF side and get like Jordan Mims, who, if that's the Fresno running back, right?
Yep.
and Sam Pinckney from Georgia State, or not Georgia State. He's on Coastal Carolina now.
Yeah.
And who was the other guy?
Isaiah Bowser.
Bowser. He's nothing. I mean, he does all right sometimes. He just touchdown dependent for UCF.
Right.
So Malik Neighbors, I don't know. He could be good, but he's not going to do anything on the college side. I think I'd be all right giving that up for Jordan Mims and take the CFF and try and win a championship.
Okay, so you like it? I have Neighbors, and he just offered me that. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 18 points a game, 16 points a game, and 14 points a game, respectively, for Mims, Bowser, and Pinckney. The only thing is, I really need to look like. There's been last week was insane. You're in multiple C2C leagues, so I'm sure you understood. Last week was insane for bye weeks, so crazy. I actually took my first loss in C2C or in campus because of the bye weeks. I have 5 to 6 starting QBs, pretty good quality QBs. And they were all either on a bye or injured. I had Cam Rising that I thought was going to play and didn't, and then Daquan Finn that I thought was going to play and didn't, and then there was multiple, and then there was obviously multiple players that had Jalin Daniels is out, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it hurt. Last week was really bad. I scored 130 points, but yeah, Now I'm sitting here going, I don't know, now that all those bye weeks are done, I don't know that those guys are going to start on my team. So if anything, it's just more of a depth trade. So you're in more C2C leagues than I am. You have a lot more experience with it. You're thinking that having that depth is more important than having those future picks and everything.
Yeah, because for one, you trade the 6th, you're still going to get another supplemental. You're going to be picking down to the 15th round in the supplemental draft anyhow. So you're going to be able to refill your roster either way. So the 6th is kind of meaningless to me. And then Neighbors, and what was the other thing? Anything else, or just Neighbors in the 6th?
And the 8th as well. Oh no, I'm sorry, 13th, not 8th, 13th.
Yes, yeah.
So Neighbors 6th round supplemental, and then a 13th round supplemental for Mims, Bowser, and Pinckney.
Especially if it makes my starting lineup better, yeah, I'd do it.
That's the thing. I just don't think that any of them are going to start for me. So it's really just having depth. That's really going to be it. Because, my starting lineup is pretty freaking stout. Yeah. Except for QBs, which he's not giving me. If he was giving me a QB right now with all the injuries I've had, it might be a little different. So, I don't know. I'm not going to accept it live on air, but, I'm definitely considering it.
Yeah, I would think about it. Like I said, if it makes your starting lineup better, then I would do it. But if it doesn't, if it's just depth, then maybe not. Because if the playoffs roll around, there's still bye weeks in the playoffs, by the way. But I don't know. It's something to think about.
Yeah, I will. I'll look at my team and see how much depth I actually have. Right. I might end up doing it, but I like it. So let's get into our Week 10 preview. Obviously, we have Tennessee and Georgia going up against each other. It's probably at least, well, I guess probably the game of the year was probably Tennessee and Alabama. People were really excited about that. Do you feel like there's that much hype for this game? Because we already see that Vegas thinks it's not going to be close. That defense is just that stout. I don't know. I feel like Tennessee's offense is better than Georgia's defense, but maybe I'm just absolutely wrong about that one.
That's the $32,000, $64,000 question, right? So for me, the first thing I have written is yes, this is right up there with the Bama game for game of the year. And there's probably not going to be another game with this much importance until Michigan takes on Ohio State in Columbus. Like you said, right now, Georgia's the 8-point favorite at home. The total's at 66.5 when I looked at it this morning. So that means the implied final score is somewhere around 37-29. So here are my thoughts. Like you said, we know that Georgia has an elite defense. We know that Tennessee has an elite offense. So trying to predict which one breaks, I think that's kind of a fool's game. We know that Tennessee's defense can be scored on by good teams. You see the Alabama game where Bama puts up over 40 points on them. Georgia's offense might not be as good as Bama's, but I think it's still pretty darn good. They're scoring over 40 points per game. A lot could happen here. Either team could obviously win. So I'm not really betting the spread. I really don't even want to bet the total. My best bet in this game is to take the over on Georgia's team total, which is at 37.5. I think that they do score 40 in this game. Whether or not that's going to be enough to beat Tennessee's offense is not something that I'm going to try to predict, because we know that Tennessee can just run it up on people. But, we don't know. Georgia's defense is elite, and we'll talk about some of the players later and what that's going to mean. But I think right now for me, I'm comfortable saying Georgia scores close to 40 or more than 40.
Yeah, actually, I was looking at it while you were talking about it, and I don't think I've been giving Georgia's offense enough credit. Like, it's not all I think about is Stetson Bennett, but like that rushing offense is just amazing. You're talking about Dejon Edwards and Kenny McIntosh, Branson Robinson, like obviously never Kendall Milton, but when you can score 4 rushing touchdowns a game, like it just they've been kind of averaging roughly like 42, 44 points a week, the past few weeks. So against SEC teams, like, and not even like just like against like Fresno State or somebody like that. So I don't know if I was giving them enough credit. So I don't know if Tennessee's defense is going to be good enough to stop. I don't. You might know, or obviously Lucas would probably know more about the rushing defense and how if they can stop that Georgia attack. But we know the Tennessee offense is going to be amazing, and they're going to put up points, even though that defense is very, very good. I'm hoping that Jalin Hyatt can continue what he's doing, and maybe even Cedric Tillman can get involved, and Jabari Smalls and all that kind of good stuff. So I'm just hoping for a great game, but I don't feel as great before I looked at what they've been putting up offensively when I first started.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned a lot of guys already, but there is just a laundry list of Devy players to watch in this game. Starting first and foremost with Jalin Hyatt, who everybody loves now. I think he showed last week he can still ball out with Tillman in the lineup. But
is he the Jameson Williams of 2022?
Yeah,
because I mean, just like no one ever talked about him, and I'm not even saying like anyone was wrong. Like, it just there was nothing to really truly talk about, and now all of a sudden he's just a stud.
No, and shout out to Devy Yusuf who said that first, because he's. I mean, it's such a great comparison. Like, their game's not exactly similar. Jalin Hyatt being more of a slot guy, but just the sense that they didn't really do anything year 1 or year 2, and then boom, year 3, they're all of a sudden getting over 3 yards per route run and just ridiculous stats.
Similar players too, because I mean, more of the deep ball, like that kind of thing. Not just the path, but also the player themselves.
No, absolutely. And I mean, if he has a great game, he's going to be going up against a potential first round draft pick in Kelly Ringo in coverage, who's the cornerback over there on Georgia. So, but if he has a big game against this Georgia defense, I mean, he's got to be a first round Devy or dynasty rookie pick, I would think. Definitely a day 2 pick in the NFL, because then he'll have done it against Alabama and Georgia, which is just, it would be crazy. Like, that's what a stock up for that guy.
And what we've seen, from this past draft, at least, we can't say like we've seen it for years, but from this past draft, like the NFL started caring more about wide receivers on their rookie contracts. So, I mean, he could easily become a first round pick, when it's all said and done in the NFL draft, not just for rookie drafts, because they care about that kind of stuff now. Like, they want good wide receivers, quality wide receivers on rookie contracts. Like a lot of people didn't think that Jahan Dotson was going to be a first round pick this past draft, and look at him. He was literally 16th pick, something like that. Like, that's how wild the NFL is for wide receivers right now. Yeah,
and that, like you said, first round pick, they get that extra year of control over them with the 5th year option. So that is big. But moving away from the wide receivers, other guys I just want to touch on in the game. I mentioned him. We both talked about him. Brock Bowers. People are already comparing him to Kyle Pitts from an athletic standpoint, because, I mean, this Brock Bowers is he could be the fastest guy in the field at some points.
But don't the amount of people that posted that damn video against the Gators this past week, like, that is not the reason to love Brock Bowers. Like, yes, he is an amazing tight end. He's very good, athletic, everything you want to see. He's going to be a first-round pick, all that kind of good stuff. But that catch where, like, the defender tipped it up and then he tipped it up and it bounced 8 times and then he caught it, that's not the reason why he's good. That's just a terrible play that worked out in his favor.
Yeah, that's just a play that looks cool. But I mean, we still have the size concerns, right? Like, he's still not 250, so
yeah,
there's that.
But like, I honestly have him in the wide receiver model for a reason. Like, I feel like he's just going to be a move tight end. Like, it's the teams aren't going to care. He's that good that where they're just going to they're just going to put him out there and he's going to run routes and he's it doesn't matter if he can't block or whatever the hell he's going to do. Maybe he can put on some weight. Who knows? But I don't think it's going to truly matter.
Yeah. And then, like we talked about him already, but the last thing I wanted to mention is just the running backs. Jabari Small could be a sneaky day 3 pick this year. And then Georgia, you mentioned Kenny McIntosh, Branson Robinson, who they're getting most of the Devy discourse, but you said Dejon Edwards, and he has come on as of late with Kendall Milton missing time. Just took your Florida Gators for 100 yards and a couple touchdowns. Yeah, so
that was ugly.
It's going to be just a great game for college football fans and Devy players like us. I really can't wait. I think it's going to be so much fun.
And Anthony Richardson was 18 for 37 for 270 yards and 1 touchdown in that game. So, you can definitely feel amazing about him. He's the 2024 101 from what I hear.
Oh, my God. So I tweeted today, because CBS Sports still puts out a mock draft like daily. Will Levis was 4th still, and Anthony Richardson was 15th. And I'm like, these guys just don't watch college football. I don't know what they're doing.
I've seen so many rankings, and I'm not truly trying to hate on people, but we talked about it before. I have a lot of hate in my heart, but it just seems like people haven't looked at a damn thing since last year, like maybe like October of last year, something like that. And they're like, oh nope, my rankings are set. It doesn't matter at this point. I get that maybe sometimes we're too quick to change our minds on a player. Look at Quentin Johnston, like that kind of thing, but. I just think that we don't get that many games, and so I like to take each game into account and really try to like make my mind up, using all of them, but like literally looking at like, okay, if you have an 8% target share through the first 4 weeks, maybe it's not the greatest start of the season, that kind of thing. But I actually wanted to ask you, talking about the Gators there. People were really excited about Montrell Johnson, and obviously this is a tangent here, but like I promised tangents in the beginning, so here we are. People were really excited about Montrell Johnson. Obviously, like they've gone up against some tough defenses recently, LSU, Georgia, like that kind of thing. But Trevor Etienne, who I was always pretty excited about, has actually been standing out lately, and he hasn't been getting like a workhorse amount of touches, but he's been standing out on a small amount of touches. Are you like ready to move Etienne above Montrell Johnson at this point?
Yeah, because like you said, the stats might not be as good, but he's hitting the NFL metrics that I want to see for a freshman. And Montrell Johnson isn't doing that now. He was when he was at Louisiana, but
yep.
So yeah, I would put Etienne above Montrell Johnson. Yeah.
And this past week, they actually had the same amount of carries, and Trevor Etienne doubled them up. And I mean, it's 1 week. I'm not trying to like take everything away from 1 week, but it just seems like Etienne is kind of like taking over, and it's what we're seeing in the NFL. So maybe it's just history repeating itself at this point.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, we're right around the hour mark. We've done a pretty good job here. Talked about some college football playoffs, talked about some trades, talked about my Gators being terrible. 4 losses. Ugh, you hate to see it. Very excited to watch the Bulldogs lose by 50 to the Vols. Lucas, do you have anything to say about that?
Vols by 50. That pretty much sums it up. I will say, looking at this game, one, I think that from the UT side, we all know about their wide receiver weapons. I think that what they can do on the ground will really determine how this game goes. And Jabari Small is not the one I'm watching. It's Jalin Hyatt. That is the big play running back for the Vols. He went 7 for 71 last week against Kentucky. So very much looking forward from Tennessee's side to see what he can do and if they can establish the ground game. From the Georgia side, you all said it many times, Brock Bowers. Tennessee does not have a tight end or a safety, I think, who can effectively cover him. So that'll be really scary to watch, and we'll see if they can contain Stetson Bennett's legs, which is kind of a weird thing to say, but it should be an absolutely fantastic game. You were talking about Georgia's offense versus Tennessee's defense. Tennessee has a very good run defense. They're averaging 2.9 yards per carry, averaging less than 100 yards per game allowed. Down in the red zone, we'll see what happens with some of Georgia's bigger backs if they can do anything. But man, I am so pumped for this game. And just to give you an idea of how pumped everyone else is, this is currently the most expensive regular season college football game on record. The get-in price right now, according to Front Office Sports, is $626, with the most expensive tickets going for $5,233.
That's
insane, man.
It's
like
going
Super
to
Bowl
be
numbers.
nuts.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I went to, my wife surprised me with Bucks tickets. Once again, living here in Tampa, watching the Ravens on Thursday Night Football, and they were tickets that were given to her from like a work partner or whatever, and it's like they were free tickets. And I still felt gypped when it was all said and done. So, like, I can only imagine paying $500 a ticket or more and going to watch a college football game, and then one of the teams has to lose. That's not my style.
So, for all the hype surrounding the game, I honestly just want a good game. If I roll out the possibility of Tennessee winning by 50, as awesome as that would be, I want a genuinely good football game, win or lose, because there's so much hype around this. I want it to feel like an actual college football playoff game. Whenever it expands, we're going to be having home playoff games for some of these lower seeds. I would love to see what that environment actually looks like, and if we can somehow mimic that on Saturday. Falls by 50. Let's go, baby.
That's right. You love to see it. Real quick, Andy, Jalin Hyatt or Chase Brown?
Chase Brown.
Chase Brown? Oh, I got him back to back.
Jalin Hyatt, I mean, as like an NFL prospect, isn't he little? He's pretty little, isn't he?
He is under 215. I think he is 205. He is a great one-cut runner. Has had some fumbling concerns. Hopefully they don't come back on Saturday.
You know who I do like on
I have
Tennessee?
him as a 29 BMI, so I mean, I don't hate that. It's not, I mean, he's not huge by any means, but he's not yeah. I mean, he's. I have him as 5'10", 200. I mean, that's not terrible.
So now, like, I'm really going off on a tangent here, but Tennessee, I do love Dylan Sampson, their freshman running back. I think he's going to be awesome.
Really?
Once Jabari Small leaves, and I guess Jalin Hyatt, like him and Justin Williams, who hasn't really done anything, but Dylan Sampson, watch out for that guy.
Ooh, I like it. We got the receipts now, but
yeah, he needs to develop a more patient running style because he has so much speed and he's so fast to the hole. But he's only been getting work with our third string offensive line, so it's kind of tough to evaluate that at times. But I think he already has 5 touchdowns this year, something crazy like that. He comes in and he cleans up.
No, I know.
I like it. I honestly haven't looked into him all that much, but Andy, we're gonna have to have another pod talking about Chase Brown because
I'm not ready to have that discussion.
Yeah, you're gonna have to convince me, dude.
I will. The numbers are there.
Are they? Because that's all I look at. But all right, let's go ahead and get out of here. It's been a lot of fun, guys. I appreciate you listening, and hopefully we gave you some good actionable info. We will be back next week with some whatever Andy comes up with. He's the one that creates the show sheets, and then I look at them, right as I join the pod. So let's go ahead and get out of here, and we will see you guys next week. But for now, we're cashing out. See you guys.